This is a story my father experienced around 1995 while he was staying near Osaka. At the time, my father was still young and was traveling all over Asia for his job in finance. One day, he was looking for a house to use as a dormitory and break area for his employees. He had asked his acquaintances to let me know if there's a good property, and he received a call from an acquaintance named Torubi. He said, "A 2-story house has come on the market, and it's incredibly cheap." The location was in the countryside, less than an hour's drive from the city, but it was tucked away, quiet, and he strongly recommended it as being perfect for business use. After hearing this, my father decided to go inspect the property 3 days later, taking his business partner and the president of the real estate agency with him. However, during the 3 days leading up to the inspection, my father began to have strange dreams every night. He hadn't even seen a photo of the house, and he knew absolutely nothing about what the place looked like. The location was in the countryside, less than an hour's drive from the city, but it was tucked away, quiet, and he strongly recommended it as being perfect for business use. After hearing this, my father decided to go inspect the property 3 days later, taking his business partner and the president of the real estate agency with him. However, during the 3 days leading up to the inspection, my father began to have strange dreams every night. He hadn't even seen a photo of the house, and he knew absolutely nothing about what the place looked like. The dream on the first night. My father was walking alone up a mountain path, a dirt road that stretched on. Thinking, the house must be up there. He was climbing when he passed by people coming down from the mountain. When my father gave a light nod of greeting, those people, with deathly pale faces, desperately used gestures and body language to signal, "Absolutely do not go there." Since it was a dream, I couldn't hear their voices, but the feeling of "you must not go" was transmitted intensely. Terrified by something, they fled down the mountain. My father hesitated, but then decided, "I'll go see it anyway," and started moving again. Suddenly, my grandfather, who should have been long dead, jumped out from the shade of a tree with a blank expression and stood in his way. No matter which way my father tried to dodge, my grandfather moved left and right to block his path. In the end, he woke up while still struggling with my grandfather. My father thought lightly of it, wondering, is Grandpa playing a prank on me by appearing in my dream? The dream on the second night. I had the same dream again. This time, from the very beginning, my grandfather was blocking the path, his eyes hollow, arms spread wide, shaking his head violently. Looking around for another path, I saw something like a large lake to the right. My father tried to force his way past my grandfather, but a sudden intuition struck him. This is not a human. Remembering a folk belief that if you encounter a monster in a dream, you should throw it to the left, he tried to challenge it to a sumo match, but my grandfather wouldn't budge, as if his roots were planted in the ground. So, my father used his wits and asked, "Grandpa, how about a match of sumo?" At that, my grandfather's expressionless face broke into a grin, and he nodded. Finding an opening, my father threw him to the ground, and my grandfather turned into a lump of black shadow and curled up. Taking advantage of the opportunity, my father climbed the mountain and witnessed a house and a reservoir right in front of it. The moment he approached the reservoir to get a closer look, he woke up. From that day on, he couldn't stop his heart from pounding. However, despite it being a 2-story mansion, the price was only about 12 million yen. It was such an exceptional deal that he couldn't give up on the idea of going to see it. The third day, at dawn on the day of the inspection. In the dream, my father was standing in front of that reservoir again. The water looked clear, but there was a dark, sinister presence lingering, as if it would pull someone in. When he looked up at the house, the black shadow from yesterday was standing in front of it, looking down at him. As my father approached the house cautiously, my grandfather stood in his way once again. But this time, my grandfather's eyes were completely out of focus, and he persistently blocked the path like a wooden doll. Seeing him not react when my father tried to challenge him to a match, but simply shaking his head to block the way, my father became convinced. I must not enter this house. He woke up in terror. The next day, feeling uneasy, he was rushed to the location by the real estate agent. The moment he arrived, my father felt a sense of déjà vu. As soon as the front door opened, a complex and unpleasant air, different from a mere chill, drifted out. Inside the house, furniture, dishes, and even half-eaten snack bags were left as they were, covered in a thick layer of white dust. It was a sight like a museum exhibit, as if the occupants had suddenly evaporated, which made his spine freeze. When he asked the real estate agent about the situation, they just dodged the question, saying, "Well, who knows?" While they were looking around the first floor as a group, my father found the stairs alone and decided to go up to the second floor. Every time he stepped on the wooden stairs, they groaned. Creak! Creak! The second floor had a strange layout. As soon as he went up, there was a long hallway and a room, and the windows were left wide open. When my father looked out the window, he froze in place. The spatial relationship between the house and the eerie reservoir, covered in green algae he had seen in his dream, was exactly the same as in reality. While standing there in a daze, looking at the house that had been so neglected that branches were growing into the windows. Behind him, he heard a creak sound, as if someone were stepping on the stairs. He turned around, but no one was there. Thinking he might have misheard, he looked out the window again, when he heard it once more. Creak, creak, the sound of someone slowly walking up the stairs. The stairs to the second floor bent halfway up, so he couldn't see the bottom. My father held his breath and stared intensely at the stairs. But although the sound was approaching, no human figure appeared. Along with the terror, he felt the air around him rapidly turning cold. Then, at one moment, the footsteps coming up stopped abruptly. The fact that the sound had ceased meant that something had already finished climbing to the second floor and was now in the same room as my father. Something is behind me. He felt an intense presence, but he didn't have the courage to turn around. While standing there drenched in cold sweat, my father moved sideways in a crab walk, inching toward another window where the sunlight was streaming in. He felt that being in the sunlight would be a little better, but there was no sign of his companions who had come with him coming up the stairs. If I stay here any longer, I'm going to see something I shouldn't. Sensing this, my father mustered his courage and ran down the stairs without looking back even once. There was no one on the first floor, and when he went outside, his partner and the real estate agent were already waiting for him. My father, enraged, shouted, "Let's leave right now," and later had the property independently investigated through an acquaintance. A month later, a shocking fact came to light. The people who had lived in that house had either died suddenly or moved out in a hurry, as if fleeing. The real estate agent had been concealing this and trying to sell it anyway. Apparently, the person who lived there just before my father was a Japanese spirit medium. It is said that even that medium suddenly collapsed, fell into a vegetative state, and passed away after 8 months of suffering. My father had stepped into a house that had been left abandoned for a year after that. Thanks to my grandfather desperately stopping him in his dreams, my father was able to escape the calamity. Ever since then, my father would often tell me, "If your intuition and instinct send you a signal that says no, believe it unconditionally.